I'd like to call the January 2019 meeting of USD 431 to order. First one of the year, exciting time ahead of us. Roll call, all present except for Carrie. Item 3, adoption of agenda. We need to amend the agenda as presented by adding 7G, the sale of the old school bus. We talked about it, but we never took action on it, so we need to add that to our list.
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion's been made to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Opportunity for visitors. Okay, we'll move on. Consent agenda, we have the minutes of December 3rd and 13th. Bills as of January 2nd. Chamber of Commerce membership that we've done every year. The accept grant, Barton County Health Department. Approved senior recognition night. And one resignation, Deborah Larkin as custodian.
I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, item 6, unfinished business, Verizon proposal.
This is just a report tonight. Robert Peter, our attorney, has sent all the additions and things that we looked at, and kind of waiting on their attorneys at this time. I have had contact in the last few days. I think there's, as I said, there will be some negotiations back and forth right now, probably the next 2 weeks. And hopefully by next month, that will be concluded one way or another. So that's kind of where we're at. He had quite a few, this representative said there was a lot of different changes, so he said it's going to take a little while. And there was quite a few changes to that. So, but I think it'll be good when we get done with it. So hopefully that'll be ready for next month's meeting. As soon as we get that, that'll be sent out to everybody to review.
Okay. Moving on, item 7, new business, policy updates.
This will serve as first reading for the new policies recommended by KASB. There are 15 new policy revisions. There's one revised form, one deleted policy, and one deleted form in this group. They're uploaded in your information. I will briefly go through those. The first one is policy ADA, school census. State statute authorizes districts to conduct census of potential students. This update from this policy, which is optional, removes the redundancy of the categories of people who may be surveyed and also allows the district to obtain birth dates of potential students through this process. Policy BCAC, spatial meetings. Per statute, and this is an optional one, unless waived, written notice stating the time, place of any spatial meeting and purpose for which is called shall be given each member of the board at least 2 days in advance of spatial meeting. So if it's not waived, if you don't sign the waiver, you have to give 2 days. And that interpretation was if it was called on Monday, you could have it on Thursday if you didn't waive it. And so instead of 2 clear days, they're changing that to 2 calendar days, so it's clear. So if you did call a special board meeting and you did not want to sign the waiver, you have to wait 2 days by the time you call it till you have it.
Well, plus written notice, right? We don't.
Right. I mean, you don't have to if you sign that waiver.
If you waive it.
Yeah. If you guys,
Because we don't do that right now.
right, we sign a waiver. Most of ours are called on fairly short notice. The next one, policy CN, public records. Basically, they kind of cleaned up the words in this to make it flow better. They also removed the requirement that the board set fees every year on an annual basis for copies to give the board more flexibility. But you are required to at least review this from time to time in fulfillment of the Kansas Open Records. And something in here that as I read, training is required for the information officer and custodian of records. So I don't know what that exists, what that can, what kind of training there is, but that does require training. The next policy, EBBE, emergency safety drills. This is also optional. This policy is on emergency drills, was revised to reflect requirements that safety drills also be conducted. There is language providing parents or students that would have access to the whole school emergency plans was revised, making emergency plans widely available, which would diminish to keep students safe. So they kind of basically was revised from saying it would be fully furnished. You don't have to furnish your plan out there because it kind of affects the safety of your students if you tell everybody, make it widely published what those plans are. 5 is GAAC, the sexual harassment for staff policy. Basically and there's several of these, it allows for summaries of the policy, not the entire policy, to be printed in the handbooks. So this is on sexual harassment concerning staff, racial and disability harassment for employees. Same thing, except summaries, and you don't have to put the whole policy into the handbook. Another optional one. GAAP policy, emergency safety interventions. This is a technical change, and they separated it into 2 areas: documentation of ESI incidents. Again, this is optional. Also, GAAP ESI acknowledgement form is deleted. No board action is required. This is of no use anymore. This will be deleted, this form. The safety intervention form that is being used. It requires no action by the board. GAAP ESI documentation form is revised. That's in place of the one below. You just retire the old form and start using this new one. Policy GACA on positions. This policy, it was modified to clarify any new employment positions are to be approved by the school board. And again, this is optional, but what it's stating, any new positions will be approved by school board. Policy GAOC, use of tobacco products and nicotine delivery devices. They have worked with Kansas Department of Health, Environment to look into this. There's 2 options. One is the mandatory on tobacco and nicotine delivery, and then the second option is a lot stronger option for this. This one is for employees. Number GAOC is for employees, and there is another one for students, the same type. Basically, talking about other delivery methods, e-cigarettes, and all the other devices that's out there that they use. So, the next one, JCAC, interrogation investigations. Basically, they left out one word in this policy. You need to adopt this one. This is required because by state statute, and the word they left out, superintendent. Discretion. It's talked about discretion, but it doesn't say superintendent. You have to have permission from the superintendent and so forth. So that is going to be required for the board to approve. 13, JCDAA, that is the tobacco nicotine delivery devices. That is for students. Same 2 options that we had for staff. JGEC, sexual harassment for students. Again, says the summaries can be printed in the handbooks instead of the whole policies. JGECA, racial and disability harassment for students. Again, summaries can be used. JGFG, student accidents and health emergencies. Basically, they're putting the Good Samaritan law, they're restating it in case there's an emergency or health emergency, you can go in and help those people and be protected by law. That's what that one is. And I'm going to guess this may came up, we had students administer CPR at a baseball game in Great Bend on an umpire. And that may have came about because I know that was statewide at that time. The next one is custodial and non-custodial parents' rights, KCB. This policy has been revised that parents that do not have divorce custody orders on file, that the parents will have access to equally to student information. The next one's MK, Educational Agency Relations. This is a deleted policy because it deals with North Central Association of Colleges and Secondary Schools that no longer has any relevance. So this policy is being deleted. And that's 15 policy revisions, 1 revised form, 1 deleted policy, and 1 deleted form. This is the first reading. They're all in your material there. We'll have 2 more before we vote. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Item 7B, out of district attendance and transportation request.
I recommend that we approve this family out of Great Bend for attendance.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the out-of-district attendance and transportation for Tisha Wickham. Is that right?
Second.
Thank you. A motion to approve the out-of-district attendance and transportation for Tisha Wickham. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Item 7C, HRC and USD, we used to have a joint meeting in around February. And I just want to see if you guys are up to doing it again next month and put that a part of our meeting, okay?
Usually takes about 30 minutes and usually put it very first on the agenda.
So,
Usually there's something worthwhile comes out of
Yep.
those meetings.
we don't need a motion or anything on that?
Nope.
Okay. Item 7D, superintendent search agenda. So
you.
I just want to kind of walk through what we've got going. I want to say thank you to Bonnie that has worked a lot of things and done a lot of things. We'll have more to do, but here's kind of what I'm going to do tonight is just kind of walk through the day of what's going to happen. I didn't know if you had these in your notebooks or not. Pass those out. I don't know if he's got these. Okay. We'll talk about all these in just a second. Dean? 11:45, the candidate will arrive here at the office and meet with the secretarial staff for about 15 minutes. And then the administrators will join them at noon for a carry-in lunch. We've got that set up and arranged to be brought here. They'll have about an hour and 15 minutes to visit, to get to know, answer any questions of those kind of things. 1:15 or so, Mr. Lowry will take the candidate around to each building, to other things in the community that will be of interest, be able to answer any questions that they may have in that couple of hours. At 3:30 to 4:30, we have that reception scheduled at the high school cafeteria. We're encouraging each teacher, staff to make it up there, to be a part for cookies and drink, to be a part of that. I doubt that it could go a little bit less, but we said 4:30. Give them about 45 minutes to break, to refresh in whatever they want to do, whoever they may be. And then meet us at Metieras at 5:15 for a meet and greet for about 15 minutes. I took the menu that you guys filled out. I've given it to Raul. We have something new each night out of the list that you chose. And those meals will be served at 5:30 to get us through and back here by 6:30. So we need to know if your partner will be here or will not be here, so we can make sure that we've got enough ordered, or if we need to cut back a little bit, we can do that as well. I can give you the menu. Tuesday is enchiladas and tamales. Wednesday is burrito and taco. Thursday is enchilada and taco. So that came out there. About 6:20, we will cut that short and move over to here. Our dinner at Gutierrez from 5:15 on. Once we set it, we'll be an executive session. We will call it to order and do the normal things. We're trying to work out exactly how we do that. And come together, and then we'll take a recess and move over here for the main interview. As Dean and I were talking today, looking at what was in the notebook that we were given, if we can keep it around 2 hours, I think that will be very helpful to everybody. And then if they want to travel on, they've still got time to get out to do what needs to be done.
Well, the other part, we are providing access to a room at the hotel.
Right, I'm sorry, that's correct.
So if they want to freshen up or if they want to stay the night, if it gets fairly late, they can, so.
And then if they just have one vehicle, my wife will drive whoever to the hotel or wherever they need to go. So they've got the transportation set up. Over the last couple of months, we've been narrowing down our questions, and Dean and I went through those today and finished those out. You have in front of you the list of the 20 questions that we have. Out of those 20 questions, we went through and set an order of what your questions may be or will be. If you notice there out to the left, your question. What we did is we made sure we went left and right, back and forth. Everybody has 2, maybe 3 questions. I think Carrie's got the lucky one, only had 2 questions. But as Dean and I were talking, as we go through these lists of questions, like question 1, 2, that could take 30 minutes depending on what we do. And so we want to make sure we keep it moving. And just when you think they're finished, then just the next person just jump in and ask their question. This was recommendation by Gary that we kind of keep this moving and know what questions we have. So,
But I would fully anticipate some of these questions, depending on the answer by the candidate, there may be some follow-up questions that somebody may want to ask regarding how they answered that. So I don't think we have to stick exactly to these without any additions, because, well, wouldn't you agree, Bill, most interviews, you'll tend to have some follow-ups and
Yeah.
see where it goes.
An answer may provoke another question.
Right.
so but at least this gives us a ballpark to play in and a way to start and keep things moving, to try to get everything done in that couple hours if we
Be
can.
consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you'll be asking the same questions all 3 nights. So that way you can hear the same responses that we have. Anybody have any?
How many interviews are we having? How many people?
Don't know yet. He said today it'd be 3 to 5, their recommendation. It's up to the board to decide at that special board meeting how many the board wants to do.
Okay, and I read where you said you wasn't gonna be here.
That's correct.
Why?
I've got another meeting. I said that when we set that meeting. I got another meeting. But he is going to, Don had talked to me about reviewing his list. I'm going to review the list of his recommendations before I leave.
I wanna say that everybody that we're gonna have as far as they're gonna recommend is somebody that you already know.
Probably.
You know, so, I mean,
I'm going to
as
be
far
able
as I'm
to,
concerned, how you view these candidates probably gonna lean more on me than any questions that we answer. Anybody can answer questions well,
Mhm.
but you know people and you know where they've been, you know the responsibilities that they've had, and if they failed or if they.
I don't think you'll need to interview more than 3.
I don't think
Personally.
either. Right.
I don't think you'll need, they may give you 5 names, but it may be for you to pick down to 3. I would say 3 would be plenty for you to interview out of that list.
Yeah, I agree, Shannon, with Bill's input. What Don and I talked about is when we get that initial list of names, Bill can look at it and contact Dawn and say yay or nay on those, and not necessarily tell us till after we've looked at them ourselves and then see whether we concur or not. Then the other opportunity for Bill's input will be where he's gonna help with the tour, give him a tour. Probably the end of the last interview, we can bring Bill in if that's all right with everybody, and then kinda give a summary after the interview process, so. Yeah, I value Bill's input too.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're firing Bill or he's being replaced, he's retiring,
Mm.
and I value his opinion more than probably what I would go through and go through on the answers.
That's a risk you always take on space people you do not know how they answer questions.
Right.
So, at my age, I probably do know most of them.
I was gonna say, I mean,
Or have at least heard something about them.
Yeah, that's true. Or I know somebody that knows something.
Right.
Well, and the other thing Donna and I talked about, I don't know, we totally got it resolved, but after they do the tour of the buildings, I would like to get the input of the principals after those tours too, to see what their reaction is.
Mason.
And we don't have to listen to all of them. No, but if we're gonna involve people in the process,
Right.
we need to hear from them.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
You know, and if you know somebody on staff, that- hey, let us know what you think. You know, have them shoot you an email or a text, you know, because it's more than just the 7 of us that, you know, we're representing, so.
We don't know the list yet, but I know he said today that he felt like the pool was pretty good. I mean, you know, just what he told me. He thought there'd be 3 to 5 they could recommend. There'll be four of them here at 9 o'clock on Monday, working through all of them, ranking them, and then they'll do like all the references, and they don't necessarily, they do reference backgrounds, not necessarily the ones provided, but they'll do background checks and stuff. And I will tell you, KASB has a pretty good list of information on most candidates already in the state, so.
Okay. Any questions or something we haven't thought of? As I said, Bonnie's worked hard, getting all this together, and I appreciate all her work.
So, does all the districts that are hiring superintendents, they go through an all-day process?
Pretty much. Well, that's only a half a day. I mean, some of them do a whole day, but, yeah, everybody goes through a pretty long process, and I tell you, they've been screening the last 4 days. And he's got another 4 days coming up. I mean, that's just, if you look at the people that they're screening for, I mean, there's quite a list right now that they're working on, so. And yes, I think it's a pretty standard practice to spend, I think we did that 12 years ago, not quite that long, but went to the school, tours, meal, interviewed.
And you
I
got
didn't know how many different
the,
positions they'd be interviewing for, whether, how many districts that they'd be applying in. And
They'll know that,
Interviewing
they'll
is-
know that too, and they'll know, like, they've done several here in the last week, and they'll know the ones that have applied maybe for multiple jobs, which that's interesting to note also. So, and they have quite a background. Their knowledge of information is pretty good on as far as candidates. I mean, they really get pretty detailed on those candidates. And they'll be able to take some right off. They'll probably eliminate some automatically. And I've had, you know, we've had some discussion on some names and stuff. I mean, you know, he can't tell me who yet until they get here, but we've had some discussions.
the other part of this process, Shannon, is, you know, half of it is them selling themselves to us, but we also have to sell our district to them. And that's some of the tours and meeting people and relationships is the two-way on that.
Well, we have a special board meeting on Monday evening. Here's our question for you. The girls play at 6:30. And from what Bonnie has shared with me, that Gary needs at least 45 minutes to share with us the candidates that they have. So my question to you is, what time would you like to start in order to get through by 6:30 to watch the girls' game, or if you miss part of the first quarter? My understanding for what will happen, they will share with us their list. I thought we could take a recess while I make 3 phone calls or 4 phone calls, whatever it is, set up the interviews and what days, come back together, and here's the order that we have chosen. Call in our first choice first and let them pick out of the 3 days. Second choice, the 2 days that are left, and the third choice is that. They will tell us, we call them, they know that the next 3 days, they've been told that they're set aside for those interviews. So it's up to you how early you want to start on Monday. If you want to get out in time for the girls' game at 6:30.
You said 45 minutes? That seems like
47.
a short period of
45
time,
minutes to an hour.
Well, 45 minutes will be for his presentation,
Right.
and then we have to
We'll
Yeah,
discuss.
then we'll have to decide,
Okay.
He'll
yeah. So I
probably,
can start whenever on Monday. I mean,
he'll probably review every app. Be honest with you, he'll probably do a short review on every app and then tell you these are his recommendations because of, and he'll have it all prepared for you
I'd say we
too.
probably need to start as early as people can, right?
Mhm.
So what's the earliest people can be here?
I'm free
I'm flexible.
Becky, what,
I can be here anytime after 4.
after 4.
I was gonna say probably 4:30 for me.
4:35?
Well, do we want to start at 5?
Perfect.
Okay.
And that should give them time to do their work, Bill.
Yes, they're gonna start at 9.
Okay.
He thinks they'll be finished by 1:30 and then he'll do the report. He'll put it all together. They're gonna do that here in this room.
Okay. So we'll meet Monday at 5 o'clock. Do we need to get one of the rooms at the activity center? Or are they already booked for the cheerleaders?
For
Or are we
doing
meeting
it
here?
right here.
Okay,
I'd do it right here. It's gonna be awful noisy and distracting out there.
okay. Okay. Item F, Board Recognition Month.
I'd like to do January is Board Recognition Month. I'd like to do that on Tuesday, the 22nd, during the halftime of the varsity boys, if that works with everybody.
What day?
Tuesday, the 22nd of January.
Should be all right.
Okay,
So we'll meet right before half down there on the south end of our bleachers, similar to what we've done in the past.
okay. Item G, sale of surplus bus.
As you know, we have that surplus bus sitting out there. We did not take action to sell that. I'd like to have that as a motion. I'm looking at putting it on Purple Wave and selling. I think our chances to get better money for it would be on Purple Wave.
I move to take bids to sell the surplus bus number 13.
Second.
Have a motion to take bids on the surplus bus number 13. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Legislative report.
Just a few things on the legislature. First thing, the December tax collections, as you know, surpassed the estimates, although at the end of the day, December this year was not as high as December last year. We are up the fiscal year ending June 30th. They believe it'll be significantly up from a year ago. As you know, that court case is out there. The legislature, I believe that they will put it, the one thing they have to do to stay out of court, and I've been told that they'll sign off and that lawsuit will disappear, is an inflation piece in the funding. And so they took care of the equity piece already. If that happens, the lawsuit goes away and it disappears and we go on. There is a group that would like to have a constitutional amendment that will be being proposed. I think it's going to be I shouldn't say it. I think it'll be a challenge to get that through. It'd be interesting to see. The reason I'm talking about tax collections is because that's how they're going to base whether or not how they do the budget for next year. And so those are up significantly. Another thing is, and I know nobody here will be able to do this because they're having a advocacy conference Wednesday and Thursday of the week of Winter Jam, the week we're interviewing, so I'm pretty sure nobody's going to go to that. But anyway, that's available. The one thing, the leadership and that education committees are significant, I think. In the education, the K-12 education, you've got Representative Williams, a Republican. She's from Augusta. She is a former teacher. The assistant chair is Kyle Hoffman, a Republican from Coldwater. With the minority is a win from a Democrat from Kansas City who's been on school board. Also on that committee, you have Brenda Diedrich, which used from a Republican from Topeka, and David Benson, a Democrat from Overland Park, which are both former superintendents. On the committee, Renee Erickson, Republican from Wichita, is a retired educator, and then Jim Ward, Democrat from Wichita, former school board member. That is your education committee for this year. So a lot of education experience been placed on that committee. The House committee is a couple of those same names. Diedrich is chairman and Ward along with another couple, Carlson from Tonganoxie, another former superintendent, and Helmer, a Republican from Mulvane, a longtime educator. So that kind of makes up those committees. Probably the biggest change I see in committees is they've moved the K-12 budget committee to 3:30, which is right opposite judiciary and so forth. So it's interesting. I don't know why they did it. Usually that's a 1:30 meeting. Not that that means, I don't know why that's been moved. So it's be interesting to see what the purpose was. So all the committees have been set with the chair people. They're back in session next week. So we'll see how that goes from there. Other than that, that's all I have as far as legislative. I have talked to Great Bend. I was going to try to set up with our senator and our representative, kind of a one-on-one with a couple board members, superintendent, and our representative, Tori Arnberger, and our Senator Mary Jo Taylor. Couldn't get that worked in over Christmas break or in that area, but sometime during session, I wouldn't mind taking a couple board members and sitting down in a small group to talk education, where they stand on different things as they go through the session. So, especially where we can't get there in the advocacy part of it. Our representative, she represents only Martin County, okay? Mary Jo Taylor has a little bit bigger area as a senator, of course, has more school districts. So, would like to sit down at some time and visit with those two, maybe part way through the session. I don't know if there's any legislative coffees scheduled for here, but if there is, maybe we can have one in between or right after or right before that, possibly. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Item 9, administrative. Mr. Lowry.
We have some professional development days coming up. Two of that are scheduled. January 21st is a scheduled professional day, working on some journeys training, working on some data, still working on KISA, goal setting, still working on MTSS. One that we've added is February 13th. That is a new one. it's gonna have a dual purpose day. We host the KY unit conference here, which is a unit conference, regional, high school and middle school. Because of the space, we're choosing to have teachers take a professional that day, and in the afternoon, the speaker is going to speak to the entire staff. He is a motivational speaker, be very good for our staff. And then again, on that February 18th, that is a scheduled one. That's a district professional development. Dr. Ruby Payne on emotional poverty. That'll be all day at Lions. So those are 3 professional days we have coming up. We're still waiting for word from the hospital pathway grant for the playground over at Roosevelt. We're still waiting on that. That hasn't started yet. As soon as I get word, I will let you know if that's been approved and if we're in process. We are working on the K-5 math curriculum adoption coming up. Mrs. Reinhardt did attach a few items. She's sponsoring basketball tonight at Pratt, so they're attached to her report in that document that you have. We are working on our KISA goals. I believe we're pretty well set in the buildings with our goals and our action plans, and we'll be bringing that to the board after February 13th. So probably March meeting that you will be seeing those for your review. And that is all I have. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Ms. Walker?
Everybody pretty much said everything. I have a few things though. We have dental screenings coming up. They go on 3 days. Next week they will be at Roosevelt on Thursday, January 10th. Also, our kindergarten is going to the middle school that day to do some STEM activities, so that's really exciting. Melissa from the dispatch will be at Roosevelt on the 18th to visit with the kindergartners about what they want to be when they grow up. We have CUNA mutual volunteers for reading. They're doing, it's more of a community service project, and they want to come in the 23rd and do some reading with our students and stuff. So that's all I've got. Mr. Lowry talked about everything else. No, thank you.
Mr. Charles?
I'll keep it short too. So, we did send grade cards home with students for the second 9 weeks. We sent our cards home with the students on Friday of last week. We do have an honor roll assembly on the 11th, this Friday, 8 o'clock. We too have dental screenings and cleanings for some of our kids Wednesday. And professional day on the 21st, we will be working, Journey's representative will be back with us, which was all paid for in part of the purchase that they come in for a few days. They were here in November. They'll be back on the 21st in the morning. She'll be with us all morning going through some of the things again for our staff on that reading series. And then the afternoon we'll be working on some math curriculum things on the 21st. We do have MTSS meeting in Salina. It's coming up January 22nd, and then they visit our district again on the 23rd. So that's part of that 5 different session. This is number 3 that we've had on those sessions. And then our staff is reading a book study on emotional poverty, and that's who we go to listen to speak on the 18th of February. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Reinhardt's at the basketball game, so we'll jump to Mr. Mason.
It's been a while since I've been here. Second semester is off to a pretty good start. Had a pretty big turnover with our students this from semester. We had 1 early graduate, so that number's a lot lower than normal, but 1 early grad, and then we had 3 students transfer out, and we did acquire 4 new students, 2 freshmen, 1 junior, and then a senior girl who is a foreign exchange student, so she makes number 6 for us at the high school, all girls. She comes to us from Brazil. So, the foreign exchange program is pretty vibrant right now with us, and it's good for those foreign exchange students, but it's really good for our kids too. learn from them, and you know, so as a building as a whole, we all benefit from that. The high school staff is doing the book study on that emotional poverty book as well. We have 20 staff members there, so we just divided the 10 chapters into one pair of teachers, and each pair of teachers has to outline the chapter and present it. So we'll be done presenting that book by the February 18th Professional Day at Lions. We did our second round of Ames web testing at the high school before Christmas, so we got all the students benchmarked for the second time in reading and math. Debate wraps up its schedule for the year at Fort Scott. Got a good drive to go to Fort Scott for the state tournament on Friday and Saturday. We have 2 students there, the twin brothers, Garrett and Peyton Dykes, will be representing Hoisington High School there at the state tournament in Fort Scott. And then we start up with our forensics schedule in about 2 weeks. And so far, you know, in the wintertime, we have debate wrapping up, forensics getting started, Scholars Bowl, basketball and wrestling all going. So a lot of action in the school. So any questions? All right. Thank you.
Mr. Schultz is
Is
out.
that Pratt? He's at Pratt also.
Okay. Item 10, board member reports. Okay, item 11, personnel. We have nothing, so we'll move to negotiations. I move to go into executive session to discuss negotiation pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under KOMA. Mr. Lowry present, and the opening meeting will resume here in the boardroom at 7:52.
Get that right, Bonnie.
Well, I'm trying to get that 15. We have a second?
Yeah, second.
So we move to okay, call our meeting back to order a little bit later than we planned. I guess the last one, item number 12.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody. See you Monday.